Do you want to continue for one more year?
Did you just put the ring on, or are you in the first few years of your marriage? Welcome to the First Year Marriage Show, a podcast dedicated to helping newlyweds navigate the first few years of marriage. My husband, Marcus, and I will be sharing marriage tips to help you build a strong foundation for your marriage. We believe having a strong foundation is essential to having a happy, healthy, and lasting marriage. We will also be learning from the experiences of awesome married couples who have been where you are today, taking from them lessons to help you build a strong foundation for the lasting marriage you desire. Take a deep breath, relax, learn, and enjoy the show. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the First Year Marriage Show. We hope you all had a great Valentine's Day weekend. We don't really celebrate Valentine's. We like to not limit it to just the one day, but we do enjoy all the chocolates. So we hope you had a great weekend, and we want to thank you all for sending us your questions and suggestions about communication in marriage. Your input has helped us with this communication ebook that we're doing. It's almost done, and it'll be available on our website very, very soon. We're really excited about that. In this week's episode, you'll learn how to fight with your spouse, an annual love contract for couples, and more. All the show notes for this week's episode can be found at firstyearmarriage.com/23. Have a wonderful week and enjoy this week's story.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the First Year Marriage Show. I'm your host, Marcus Kusi, and our guests for this week are Warren and Betsy Talbot. Warren and Betsy have been married for more than 10 years, and they live in Spain. Together, they co-host the popular marriage podcast, Married with Luggage, and they enjoy showing couples what they've learned about love by traveling around the world. Warren and Betsy, thank you guys for coming on the show today.
Hi, Marcus. It's great to be here.
We're delighted to be here. Anxious to talk to you.
I'm also anxious to hear your story and share what you guys have learned over the past few years with your marriage and with your lifestyle with our listeners today. Warren and Betsy, can you guys tell us a little bit about yourself and what you guys do? I know you live in Spain, so can you share a lot of insights with that for us too?
Sure. We are authors, and for the last 4.5 years, we have followed our dream of traveling the world and exploring different cultures and the experiences along the way. We had regular corporate jobs back in America, and in 2007, Betsy's brother had a heart attack. And then a year later, we had a very dear friend of ours that had a brain aneurysm. Both of them almost died. And in the course of that, it kind of changed our lives. And it caused us to ask the question, what would we do with our lives if we weren't going to live until 40? We were both 37 at the time. And that question really changed the entire shape of our lives.
So we decided to travel the world. And to do that, we had to save a bunch of money and get rid of all of our stuff. And it took us about 2 years to make that happen. And on October 1st, 2010, we set off on a journey around the world with just 2 backpacks. And it was about 6 months into that when we decided that we wanted to make it a forever kind of a thing. And so we started creating the business and the lifestyle to make that happen. And just last year, we bought a little house here in Spain. And when we're not traveling, this is where we live and work.
Oh, wow. That's really exciting because from what you guys are saying, it looks like it was just one question that you had to ask each other and then determine what you wanted to do for the rest of your lives.
Well, yeah, it's funny how when you open yourselves up to the things that you really want to do, everything else sort of starts falling into place. I mean, when you're going after what you really want, everything becomes more clear in your relationship, in your life, in your work, everything.
And we gave ourselves permission to allow ourselves to dream big. And I think that was what that question did for us. And it really shook us. You know, our friend was in the hospital still with we didn't know whether she was going to survive or not. And so I think that was probably what changed so much of our perspective on it, is looking at it and saying, wow, we may not be here to have this kind of dream of retirement that we thought about. We need to do something about our dream now and make it happen and not wait, because we never know if we'll be given the time.
I think we finally got woken up to the idea that you only live once.
Yep.
And if you don't make the most of your opportunities and your desires, you have no one to blame but yourself. And so we decided to stop waiting around and do something about it.
And we wanted to spend that time together. And so we've made a life and created a lifestyle that allows us to spend 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Wow, that's awesome. So Warren, how did you guys meet?
Yeah, we met when we were at work. So we both worked at the same company. Betsy came and joined the organization, and we met one day when she was coming in for an interview in the lobby. And I approached her, and I didn't even introduce myself.
He was so rude to me. I couldn't stand him. I thought he was terrible. And it took me a while to warm up to his charms, probably 6 or 8 months, actually, after we started working together.
So we didn't go on our first date for at least 8 months. Yeah.
So after the first date, like what actually got you guys excited about each other that you decided to consider getting married together?
Well, I would say the thing that really got us excited about it was the fact that Warren got transferred.
Yeah.
So right after we started dating, and I mean within maybe 2 weeks, he got transferred to New Jersey.
Which is about 4 hours by car away from where we were living at the time.
So we had to decide at that moment whether we wanted to try to make this into a long distance relationship. Did we really like each other enough to put in that kind of effort? And normally that early in a relationship, I don't think you think about those kinds of things. But because Warren was leaving, I started thinking about all I knew about him, both as a friend and a coworker and all of that. And it made me start thinking, I really kind of like this hard-headed, straight-talking guy.
And I love Betsy's. She's an independent woman. She knows what she wants in life. And I find that extremely sexy and extremely exciting to have in my life. She pushes me and makes me a better person and makes me want to dream bigger for myself. And I think that's what all of us deserve in life.
So that's what we did. We had a long distance relationship for the length of his contract, which was, I believe, 6 or 8 months. And after that, things got really serious fast, and we've been together ever since.
Wow. Looks like you guys had a really interesting journey from not knowing each other, getting to know each other, working together, being apart for a little bit, and then deciding you actually wanted to settle down together as a married couple. So
exactly.
Yeah. So after you guys got married during that first year, I know there are a lot of things that happens for a lot of couples. With you guys, how would you describe your first year in 1 or 2 words?
Difficult.
Difficult.
Yeah. Surprised that we survived.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a big transition for us because we're both really strong-willed, hard-headed people. And having a relationship long distance is very different from living together in the same house. And I think that was a challenge for us.
What are some of the challenges that you guys had to go through?
Luckily, we didn't really fight about money. Money was not one of the issues. I think it was we both were living our own lives, and suddenly we were bringing together different aspects, different expectations of independence, different aspects and ideas associated with how we would spend the time together and the time apart, and what was the highest priority in our relationship.
I think we both still thought of ourselves as individuals, and we did not have a team mindset that first year, and it really showed. It really showed. We were not a team.
We wanted to have, and as we learned over the course of that first year, 2 years actually, we learned that what we wanted was our business first, that was the highest priority, and our relationship second or third. And that created a lot of angst and problems and distance between us, both, in terms of the fighting, in terms of the sex, in terms of the overall communication. Everything was challenging in that time period.
So whilst you guys were experiencing all of these challenging and difficult moments, what are some of the steps that you took together to be able to resolve the issues that you guys were having day to day?
The biggest thing that we did was sit down and decide what we wanted our life to look like. Certainly neither one of us were thrilled with the way things were going. And so we decided one day to sit at our kitchen table and make a list of what we wanted our life to look like, and then figure out why we were so far off the mark.
And so that list basically defined how much commuting time we wanted, how much travel, how much time we wanted to spend together, how much, how we wanted to spend that time when we were together. And, everything about our life was wrapped up in there. And so we used that list as a way to open the communication between us to say, what's important to us? Are we going to continue to travel 80% of the time away from each other? And that was what was really important. And so through the course of that time, that list changed our lives together. Betsy changed her job. We changed our location. I changed my job shortly thereafter. We actually moved to across the country.
We moved from the suburbs into the city.
And, so our life went from this one of barely seeing each other to spending time walking hand in hand to all these different shops and restaurants and having a variety of friends around us that supported us and that had lives similar to us. And so creating that list of our ideal life changed everything about how we lived our lives together.
I can see how creating a list really helps because it's actually wiser to put things on paper so you can actually see it and be able to check
right.
it off.
Exactly right. Yes.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. So it looks like you guys were able to talk together and work things out whilst you were going through all the difficult times in that first year. During that first year, I know there are a lot of adjustments people have to go through, especially as a newlywed. And I want you guys to share individually some of the adjustments or struggles that you had to go through whilst you were trying to merge everything together and live together as a married couple.
Well, for me, it was the fact that he had opinions that were different than mine. So I kept thinking, how can this be the person that I fell in love with if he has all of the wrong opinions on really important things in life, like the temperature that we sleep in the bedroom, or what we're going to watch on television, or, whether we can have tomatoes in the dishes that we cook at night. I mean, really important things like that drove me nuts.
And for me, it was like little things. It was this stuff of the, Betsy does things very differently than I do. I'm a very orderly person. She's clean, but not as orderly as I am. And so I had to get used to the fact that she wasn't stacking the dishwasher the same way that I did. And she wasn't, making up the bed in the same way. But it was a whole variety of things, including the toothpaste. I'm from the bottom and she's from the wherever she happens to pick it up, which drives me insane to this day. It was these things that we really weren't prepared for. And all of these were the things we were fighting about. It wasn't about money or kids or anything like that. It was all this myriad of differences that we weren't prepared for that kind of culminated in each one became the basis for a fight.
I think it's hard anytime you live with someone, whether it's your family or a roommate or your spouse, it's hard to reconcile, the everyday habits of each other. And especially when you add love into the mix, sometimes you get really frustrated and you start blaming the other person and thinking, well, he acts that way because he doesn't love me, or he does that because he doesn't respect me. And you start adding on all these layers of meaning that really don't exist. It's simply just a change of habits.
Yeah.
But it's easy to let that get out of hand.
Based on what you guys are telling me right now, again, what I'm seeing is during that first year, you moved from not being able to communicate with each other at all, and then probably during the end of the first year or during the end of the second year, you were able to communicate with each other and you were able to make some sacrifices personally just to be able to make sure that you're living together as a married couple and be able to be productive together as a married couple and move forward with the plans or goals that you guys had for each other for your marriage.
Yeah, I think we learned to let a lot of things go. I mean, we were putting the importance on the wrong things early on.
Yep.
You shouldn't let whether somebody knows how to load the dishwasher properly determine whether you're going to be happily married or not.
Right.
And I think we were focusing on all the wrong things and ignoring the important things. And that's why we weren't moving ahead.
Well, and Betsy came up with this idea very early on in that in this course of this time is that we need to be partners. We're not husband and wife. We are partners, which means in everything we do, we support each other. And that concept really changed how we viewed ourselves. We were partners in everything that we did together, whether that be supporting each other in business, supporting each other in the processes and the individual passions that we had, or supporting each other in the things that we were doing together. We were partners and we did things together. And I think that changed our entire mentality, and life became so much better when we wanted to be together. It wasn't a chore, and it certainly wasn't a big deal to carve out a night or two a week for date night. It was really easy because that's all we wanted to do. Our marriage and our relationship became the number one priority, and second was work. And it was a distant second at that, and that was what was important.
Yeah, I think it all comes down to, like I said before, teamwork. And, when I look at Warren as my primary teammate, the person who's with me, no matter what we're up against, no matter what we're doing, he is my teammate. That transformed the way I thought about my marriage because, I come from a very traditional background where, the wife has a certain role and the husband has a certain role. And there's, a bit of tension over what those roles might be. And it wasn't until I changed my thinking into teammates that it transformed our relationship.
It's funny how when you change your mindset, even if it's not about your marriage or even if it's about something else, like the way things tend to move faster for you simply because of just changing that mindset and not sticking with what you've been used to or what you've been told for the past 10 years or whatever years of your life.
Well, you can't change the other person. You can only change yourself.
And when you change that mindset, everything kind of seems to shift, and you realize you can't even remember what it was like before you thought this way. And that's how we are now. We can remember how miserable our lives were, but it's only in memory. It's not the emotions that we had back then.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because as we're answering these questions, I'm trying to really hard to think back to what that was like because we are so far removed from that now.
Correct.
Yeah, knowing that you guys have been married for 10 plus years, I know it's going to be difficult to remember that first year.
Oh, no, there are certain moments that are seared in your memory. And that evening, sitting across the table, we had to make the decision whether we were going to get divorced or stay married. And that evening is seared into both of our memories.
Yes.
It's the emotions that were tied around it that kind of seem to fade away over time.
So talking about emotions right now, I want you guys to share one of the happiest or exciting moments that you had during that first year.
Oh, gosh. I think the hardest part for me was, and I think Warren will probably agree with me on this. This was at the end of the second year when we really thought that we were going to get divorced. We lived outside of Boston, Massachusetts at the time, and we ended up meeting for a date at the airport in Denver, Colorado. I was going back home after a business trip, and Warren was going somewhere else. And we thought that it was kind of cool that we were meeting up in the middle of the country for a date. But then when we got there, we realized how sad our life was, that that's something that we had to look forward to. And it was at that moment, I think we realized we have to make a decision right now. We either have to make this thing work or we have to walk away from each other. And I remember the smell of the food court in the airport. I remember the feeling how tired I was. I remember everything about that night. I do. It's seared into my memory.
And so from the happiness side, I would say the day that we arrived in Seattle, because we had moved across the country, we used that day was a new start for us. It was a new start for our relationship and us individually. And everything that has happened since, the traveling around the world, the living in Spain, the being an amazing team and building a great business together, all started on that day. And so that's probably the happiest day of my first 2 years of being married to you.
And talking about living in Spain, like, what are some of the exciting things that you guys do together over there?
Well,
everything.
we do love living here. We still do quite a bit of travel, but this is what we consider our home base. And while we're here, I mean, every day we go walking. We're big walkers. And when the weather's really warm, which is about 10 months out of the year, we wake up every morning and we watch the sunrise together on our walks. And that is a beautiful way to start the day. I mean, we see the sunrise 10 months out of the year together.
Wow, that is really amazing.
Amazing way to live.
Yeah, and then we spend time at the here at the local cafes, having sipping wine or having coffee and talking to the people here as a team. It's the two of us together, and we're doing that in Spanish and expanding our language and expanding our cultural knowledge. And I love doing that with Betsy because it's a chance for us to explore something completely new and different. And just a few weeks ago, for example, we sat up on stage in front of 100 people here in our tiny little village, and we gave a presentation of our latest book. And we did the entire presentation in Spanish and presented that together. And those are amazing memories that we're making and new experiences that I never would have thought possible even a year ago.
Well, and I'm taking flamenco dancing lessons, which is kind of crazy. And, Warren is, diving into the small business scene here in our village. And I don't know, it's just a great lifestyle with really nice people in beautiful weather.
So before you guys came to that day that you decided to decide, okay, this is the kind of life that we want to live going forward, was there any resources that you both used individually or together to see if you could resolve the issues that you're having during those first few years?
I don't think so. I mean, I looking back, we really came to a lot of the conversations based upon just our own intuition of what was wrong. We didn't really look at it and say this was going to, in the moment, it was really hard to say that this is the moment that changes your life. It's only upon reflection that you can determine how big it was. So in that time period, all we knew is that things were bad, very bad. And we sat down to create this list based upon a really just a last-ditch effort to save our marriage because we didn't know what was going to happen.
Well, I think a lot of it was also due to the fact that we knew things were broken, but we weren't looking for help because we were blaming the other person.
Yeah.
If only he would be X, Y, or Z, or he was thinking the same thing about me. So I didn't need to go read a book or take a course because it was all his fault. Although I will admit that we went to marriage therapy twice. If you'll remember, we went we went to go see this counselor, and we were both, I mean, we hardly spoke to each other on the way over, and we finally got there. And for once in our lives, we became a team, and we ganged up on the marriage counselor.
Because he was absolutely terrible. His best asset was that he got us to actually agree that he was a horrible counselor.
But see, I think we did that because we didn't want to face our problems. And so I think a lot of couples probably feel the same way that we did, in that you're just in this murky mess and you don't know how to get out of it. And the easiest thing to do is blame the other person.
Yeah. It's very easy to blame your spouse when things are not going right. It's I don't know whether it's part of human nature or it's something that we choose to do, but it's really very, very easy.
Yeah, yes. I think it's probably human nature. I think it's just, it's our nature to, not take the full responsibility when things are going wrong, because it's easier to see the faults in the others around you versus turning that big giant light upon ourselves. And self-reflection it can be a scary thing.
Yeah. I know you guys have been married for about 10 years. You share a lot of insights and you do a lot of things together as a married couple, like traveling, watching the sunsets almost every day out of the year. What are some of the other things that you guys do together so that you keep growing together as a married couple?
Well, we work together, and that's probably the biggest thing, is that we have our own small publishing company and we write books together. And, we also publish our own podcast every week. So our business does take a considerable amount of our time, and we're working together. And what's great about that is that you get to see the talents and skills of your partner in a different way than you do in a loving relationship. I mean, this is a work situation. It's completely different. And I love seeing Warren in that light. And I also love creating things together. When we create books or podcasts or courses or whatever it is that we're putting together, it's a beautiful thing to do that with your life partner, because you're getting to see what the two of you can make together that will help other people. And I don't know, that's something that I think really brings us closer together.
Yeah, it's really beautiful, and I'm glad you guys are sharing that with us, because I didn't even think about it that way, like being able to grow together whilst working or doing the same thing as a couple. It's not something that even came to my mind, so I'm glad you guys are throwing that out there and telling us what you guys do to grow together as a married couple.
Yeah, it definitely makes a difference. And even just the brainstorming, when you're starting to think about whether you're coming up with new ideas to write about or you're trying to solve a problem in your business, I find that a lot of the things that we talk about in our relationship go over to our business and vice versa. I mean, it all seems like it all works together. And so it's just a different way of looking at life and the talents and skills of your partner.
So you guys work together as a married couple.
Yes.
Whilst you guys are working, do you guys have any fights at all? Because I know it's not.
I think you've been spying on us, Marcus.
There is no doubt that we fight. We fight about work and we fight about personal. I mean, and we have fights like everybody. The difference is how we fight may be slightly different than most people are used to.
Yeah, we've learned to fight fast. And so we fight about one topic at a time. We don't allow any other topics to come in. We have to stay on track. And we've gotten it down to where we can resolve a fight pretty quickly.
It may get hot. I mean, we've had fights recently that are about business, and we really focus in on that one issue. We then call the other person if they decide to kind of veer it into something else, because that's the problem with fights, is that we fight about the toothpaste, and suddenly within 5 minutes, it's about the mother-in-law, and 10 minutes later, you're calling her names, and you're like, how did this all get from this one little thing? We really hone it in on what is the core of this problem? what do we need to do to resolve it? And then let's talk about that. Let's move it from heated argument to a conversation about what's really bothering us. And that's allowed us to get really, really good at how we fight.
And, we have little sayings that sort of bring us back on track. We'll say things like, how did my ancestors get into this?
Yes.
Or something like that. And it kind of alerts the other person that they're going off track because, if you just yell at them and say, stay on track, this is only one thing, then, they may still get even madder. So I think you have to have these little catchphrases in your relationship to remind you of the kind of behavior that you promised to adhere to. So we promise to fight this way with each other. And if we go off track in the heat of the moment, in the passion, you just need a friendly little reminder to get back on track.
And I think, Marcus, we have a great relationship. I love my partner more than anything in the world. But we fight. And I don't think that's unhealthy. I think that the issue is how we fight is really probably the healthiest thing that we do. We're always going to disagree because we have different opinions. We're different people. And so we have different ways of approaching things. And I think that we've learned a lot of things over the years that have helped us. And there's been tools that we've learned and apply. But the most important thing is accepting that we will fight and then making sure that when we do it in the best way possible.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I know fighting is something that it's inevitable. No matter what kind of couple you are, you're going to have those fights. Even if you're married for 100 years.
Yeah, exactly.
You're going to have fights someday or sometime. And it's how you handle those fights that's going to determine whether you guys are going to improve with your marriage or whether you guys are going to call it quits or be angry and be in a really pissy mode all year long. So I really concur with you guys saying that. I had this question for you guys. Since you guys fight a lot and you do business together as a married couple, what are some of the rules or like maybe 3-step formula that you guys can give to our listeners who are listening to us right now, who also work together as a married couple so they can apply that in their business? So when they're fighting their business, okay, they know this is a business fight. If they are fighting on personal terms, they know this is us fighting based on our differences, on our own opinions.
Well, the first step is exactly as you just said, Marcus, is to identify what you're fighting about. And so we always sit down and the fight just erupts. You never know, just it either erupts or it just kind of slowly builds and suddenly you're in it. And you have to remind each other out loud that what it is. I am coming to you as a business partner with this, or we need to resolve this because personally I'm having problems with it. And so using words that are not attacking the other person, but just making sure where you're coming from is probably and the fact that you're seeing it as a business or a personal conversation, make sure that that's clear.
And I think the second step is thinking about it from your shared interests. So you're having this fight and the goal is to resolve the fight so that your relationship or business or whatever can move forward. So I think many times we fight based on position. I have this opinion, and if I don't get him to my opinion, then I've lost the fight. You have to let go of position-based fighting, and you have to think about the shared interest. And when you have that top of mind, it's a lot easier to come up with a solution than it is to try to convince someone that they're completely wrong and you're completely right.
Yeah, and I would say that the third thing is you've got to make sure that the two of you, that when you're talking, that you are communicating your opinion. You're saying very clearly, this is how I feel. And I am guilty of this, so I can speak from authority. I have always had a trouble because I always say something and I am essentially telling Betsy how she should feel. And that, if you want to push a button on Betsy, that's one right there. And I have had to learn that that is a bad thing. I need to express how I'm feeling about the subject. And I need to express why it's bothering me and and remove the emotion from it and not get upset about it, but just express why I am upset. And that has really transformed how we fight and how we argue and how we disagree on things.
That's true. Don't tell me how I feel. Tell me how you feel.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for sharing your strategies with us. I know our listeners are going to apply in their marriages, and I personally also going to apply in my marriage whenever I fight occurs, because once in a while there will be that fight that comes out of the blue that you have to work through it. So thank you guys a lot.
Yes, it took us a long time to come up with that.
Wow, we are almost up to the 30-minute mark. But before I let you guys go, can you guys share 1 or 2 lessons or advice that you guys wish you had known before you got married?
Well, one of the things that we do every year now that we didn't do in those first couple years is we do something called the annual love contract. So we view our marriage not as an ever, not for happily ever after and not for the rest of our lives. We view it on an annual basis. And every year, just so happens to be on our anniversary, we sit down and we define out what has gone well for us in the last year, what have we loved about our life and our life together, and what could we do better as a couple and individually to improve our relationship.
Yeah, we talk about this from an individual standpoint. What are the things that are, driving me crazy about him and vice versa. And also, in the way our lifestyle looks and how it's operating. And we ask each other point blank at the end of those conversations, do you want to continue for one more year? And it's a powerful conversation to have because you are actively choosing to be with your partner again. It's not a default from the day that you got married that lasts for decades and decades. It's actively committing. And once you do that, you have to acknowledge the things that were good in your marriage and the things that were not so good in your marriage and how you're going to fix them. And doing this every year means that you don't wake up 10 or 15 years down the road and wonder what in the heck happened to your marriage.
And we actually just finished, and it's actually perfect timing. We just finished putting together our 1-year love contract and how to run your own at marriedwithluggage.com. If you sign up there, you can actually get it for free, and it will walk you through the steps to start your own 1-year love contract. And that one thing has changed our marriage so much, and that ability to renew it on an annual basis.
I think the other thing that I would say is that, be open to learning about life and love from unusual sources. You don't have to always go to the same source. For instance, the idea for this love contract came from a book called Cutting for Stone by Abraham Verghese. And it was about some side characters in the book, 2 Indian doctors who were working in Ethiopia. And he was so in love with her and wanted to marry her. And she said, I will, but only for 1 year. And she gave her reasoning and all of that. And of course, they ended up having a decades-long affair. But I remember reading that in that book and thinking, this is supposed to entertain me, but I think it just changed my life.
Wow. I'm really glad you guys are sharing this resource because I personally, during the year, like on our anniversary, we go over our marriage and see how best we can improve. And usually one of our goals is to read a book together as a married couple so we keep growing together and not grow apart every year. So right. I'll definitely incorporate the contract into our marriage because I think it's beneficial. And since you guys have it handy, I'll just sign up and then get a copy of myself so we can go through it during our anniversary because I think it's something that will help anybody who's listening to us or anybody who's married to be able to have that yearly contract or that yearly discussion whereby you decide whether you're going to move ahead or you're going to make some changes so you can be together for the years to come.
Yeah, exactly. It's a powerful thing, and I look forward to. I hope you guys will share your results afterwards with us and let us know how it worked for you because we would love to be able to listen to your story more.
Yeah. Thank you guys again, Ryan and Betsy, for sharing your story with us today. I'm really I don't know how to describe it. I'm really happy that you guys came to share your story because I've learned something new, especially with the annual marriage contracts that I'm going to apply in my marriage. And I think our listeners have also learned something new that are also going to apply in a marriage. If someone wants to get in touch with you guys or want to say thank you for sharing your story or the resources that you guys have mentioned today, how best can they do that?
Well, they can do that at marriedwithluggage.com. From there, you can find the links to everything from our podcast to our Facebook page to our books. And also that is where you can get the annual, how to create an annual love contract.
Thank you guys again, Warren and Betsy, for coming to share your first year story. I'm really glad you guys took time off your busy schedule and your fun evening walks in Spain to talk with us. So I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Marcus. Had a great time.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the First Year Marriage Show. To submit a question, feedback, or suggestions for the podcast, visit firstyearmarriage.com/feedback. Apply what you've learned today and build a strong foundation for the happy, healthy, and lasting marriage you desire. Enjoy your marriage. Enjoy your life.